Hello, I'm sure most of you know me, but it's possible that this video will get away from me and us, so I'll introduce myself. I am Jim Burdick, a member of the Coastal Bend Mission Center Presidency. My contact information will be available in this presentation, as well as on the Coastal Bend Mission Center YouTube page. Our Mission Center wants to do more with less, so to speak. So we have invested in an account with Zoom.us. It is a simple, basic account, and it surely should cost you less than $200 in US dollars. I share this information in the event that any congregation or entity would rather acquire its own Zoom account instead of using the Mission Center account. To make the best use of Zoom, we envision making this tool available to congregations, groups, committees, temple school, etc. This means that if you are in a pastorate or organizing a camp or a retreat, or trying to organize or conduct a priesthood meeting, you might want to consider using Zoom. Please remember, in the vein of doing more with less concept, the Zoom service is intended for use by congregations and groups within the Coastal Bend Mission Center, not just by the Mission Center itself. In this presentation, I will try to present whatever you need to become productive with Zoom. I do not expect you to use this presentation by sitting down once, watching it, and then doing. I expect that you might watch it through and then rerun it in small steps and repeat the steps until you've mastered that step before proceeding. Ultimately, I expect that there will be a time key into when a subject starts and when it ends, but that's beyond this phase of development. So feel free to investigate in the future. A time key is a sort of index to a video that shows when a certain element is shown by letting you skip to that minute and second when that subject is shown. This is the basic agenda for this presentation, and you'll notice that it contains some major and minor topics. You might take things totally in sequence, and that's fine. Or if you choose to, ignore the minor topics until you've successfully viewed the major topics, that's fine too. And then you can go back and do the minor topics after you've seen the majors. This depends on what your style is, and if you need to try to keep away from the most complex thing, that's fine. This is the basic agenda for this presentation, and you'll notice that it contains some major and minor topics. You might take things totally in sequence, and that's fine. Or if you choose to, ignore the minor topics until you've successfully viewed the major topics, that's fine too. And then you can go back and do the minor topics after you've seen the majors. This depends on what your style is, and if you need to try to keep away from the most complex thing, that's fine. Just so we can start on the same page, I recommend that you go get the Zoom application for your laptop or desktop. I'm not gearing this instruction to phones, tablets, or similar devices, handheld devices, or small devices, but these instructions should work for laptops and desktops. The easiest way to accomplish this is to use your favorite browser and go to www.zoom.us and navigate to downloads and then download the Zoom installer. In some cases, going to Google and searching for download zoom.us will give you options enough that will get you to where you want to be. In any event, download the file and execute it to install. If everything goes correctly, the local Zoom app will open for you and you will be off and running, ready to create an account. I'm going to show a video of how downloading it worked on my computer.
in my browser, and I have typed in actually download Zoom US, Zoom.us for PC. So I'm ready to go and let Google find the right place for me. When I do that, Google does their Zoom.us, and here is Zoom.us support download. I click on that, and my browser will go to open up the program, and down in the lower left hand corner it is downloading it. It has finished, and the blue arrows pointing to the file. And if I were to click one time on that file, it would start. And sometimes you may have to double click depending on your browser and its settings. um, it would start the actual install of Zoom. If I do that, I already have Zoom running, and it would kill my current uh, Zoom application and put in a new one and pick me up, uh, already knowing I'm a client. So I'm not going to click on that, but we will continue with the process as though I knew what I was doing.
At this point, we have downloaded Zoom and installed it, and you are now ready to create a free personal account. To create a personal account, you need an email address. This will be your user ID, and you can only have one account tied to an email address. So pick your good one, and then you will need to create your own password. Please use a good password, 8 or more characters mixed with uppercase, lowercase, numerals, and special characters or punctuation. The typical things that you do. Don't use your email password. Don't use your kids' names. Um, don't use your password to your bank, for crying out loud. Anyway, this process, when you're done, ought to leave you either logged in or waiting and wanting to log in, and that is fine. Personally, I end the process after it says it's done. Uh, I prefer not to log in directly at that point, but then to start the program and log in after starting. It's very possible that Zoom will want to verify your email address, and so they may tell you, check your email. We've sent you an email and it has a link in it. Please press that link and do that before you log on. That's just verifying your email, making sure it's not spam or something like that. And you'll want to do that as soon as you can, and then we'll continue. However you do it for your operating system, whether you're Windows user or Mac user, you need to go and start the Zoom program. That's typically going to be finding the right icon and clicking or double clicking, or click and select run or open. So run Zoom. Uh, Particularly the first time, it may take a little longer to start than other times, but it should come up and offer you a screen or a window that includes a login option. The login, select that login option, enter your user ID, which is, as I mentioned earlier, your email address, enter your password, and it should take you and log you in. Most of our activity will start from within a meeting. So you need to first get used to starting Zoom and getting into a meeting, uh, or how to start your own meeting in order to try out the things that we're going to be discussing. When you have successfully logged in, basically Zoom is going to expect you to do one of three things: schedule a meeting, start a meeting, or join a meeting. Every account has a default meeting or a meeting number, meeting ID. That's sort of like your Zoom phone number, and you might want to note yours. This is your default meeting ID. If a friend says, hey, I'll meet you on Zoom, one of you has to have a default meeting ID. If you keep your free account, you can have free Zoom conversations with friends for, I think it's 40 or 45 minutes. You have unlimited numbers of these. Well, that's a pretty decent call. I mean, if I really need to talk to somebody for 2 hours and a conference call, video call was what we thought we wanted, I could probably live with going until it times out and says, okay, this meeting's going to end the meeting, call again and restart. And if you had to do that 2-3 times, it's free. And so it is a good thing. So keep your free account, and you can use your free account to call into a meeting that may be lasting or may be scheduled to last, say, for 4 hours. That's okay. You don't have to have a paid account to take part in that meeting. You can do it with your free account. So it's important that you get signed in, and when you get signed in, that you realize you're going to be at this screen that you see that basically says start a new meeting, join an existing meeting, or you can schedule a meeting. And it also says that you can share your screen, but that's kind of an esoteric thing for you to do at this point. So we're not even going to worry about or discuss that. So get used to, this is the way to get in. And for right now, what we will be doing, all you'll need to do what we do without anybody else's helping or anything like that, is to go in and say new meeting. There are some things that people would like to do, and we will have some of them, but we'll explain why they won't work the way you want without other people there. And for that, you'll want to be in an existing meeting, or you want your meeting to become an existing meeting that others can join. So I'm going to go into that, because from now on, if you were to push new meeting and start a new meeting, this is where you would be. Once you get logged in properly, Zoom is going to expect you, as we said, to do one of three things: to either schedule a meeting, start a meeting, or join an existing meeting. And at that point, you're going to be put into what's called the meeting screen. Now, the meeting screen is the screen you're viewing me on right now. It's that rectangle that goes from this corner to this corner, down to this corner, and across to this corner, and then back up. That's the meeting screen. You just saw it. And so far, I'm the only thing that's been shown. I'm the only person that's been shown in that meeting screen. And that's the nature of using a meeting screen alone. You don't see anybody else. But the meeting screen is where you would see anybody that did join the meeting. And hang on a second. And the meeting, as you can see, has been joined by somebody else. Well, it's my twin brother. My twin brother is this one. Myself is this one. And I just used my iPhone to simulate a second person being logged on. Anyway, as you log in, you will be operating outside of the meeting screen. This is the meeting screen. So I can't reach the edges of the meeting screen. I can only reach the edges of my picture inside the meeting screen. I would need the help of my brother to reach the other side, and he's not too cooperative, actually. So I'm not going to bother him. He'll just watch. So he thinks he's a twin. He's not, actually. He just thinks he is. So anyway, when we have this meeting screen, this is where people will join. And if I were to call somebody or email them and tell them my default meeting ID, they would be able to come to this meeting screen by going to their browser and or going to Zoom, either way, and go to zoom.us/J, with the lowercase j, which stands for join, slash, and type in my meeting number. If they typed in your meeting number, they would try to go to a meeting that you have started. But this meeting number is 507-235-7849. If he types that in, well, you see what happens. He shows up in this meeting. So that's the idea of the meeting. Most everything that we're going to be doing now is something done out of the meeting screen. So what I need you to do is understand that when we start talking about the various screen sharing and chat and voting and things like that, the context we're going to be talking about them from is from the meeting screen. So with that, we're going to go in and we're going to start talking about schedule, start, and join from inside the meeting screen, which we'll use that as our common location. We're going to talk now about scheduling a meeting. If you want to start a single one-time meeting, it's easiest to just use your default meeting ID. If not, then you can define a meeting name, time, and more, and that will schedule a meeting. We'll say that might be scheduled for tomorrow. The meeting will go on your schedule, but will disappear after that scheduled time has passed. If you want a recurring meeting, one that, say, every week, every month, something like that, then let's say you want a 30-minute family drop-in meeting every Thursday night. Well, you can define that and create a schedule for that. And if you do, that every time you log in, you will see that meeting as one of your options. And the options for your meeting can be clicked on, or you can look at the number, write down the meeting ID number, and then go to that meeting ID by start a new meeting. But you're better off clicking on your scheduled meeting. So your scheduled meetings show up on that login screen where you have the choice between join, start, schedule, and so forth. Just for information, our mission center has recurring meetings for, at this point, at least for leadership teleconference every month, temple school with no specific repeating schedule, and pastors roundtables every month as examples of how you might have scheduled meetings. If you do the scheduled meetings and if things don't go wrong, then the meeting ID, which will be different than each of those will have its own unique meeting ID that has nothing to do with my default meeting ID. Those meeting IDs will be consistent and will last, and you can carry on and on and on. And what makes that convenient is people can make a link, click on this link for the meeting that they expect, and then they can run to that meeting quickly. When you decide to start a meeting, the major difference between the meetings you start is whether you select an established meeting, a scheduled meeting, or a brand new meeting. As we've mentioned, the brand new meeting will have an ID. Remember, that's sort of like a Zoom phone number, a Zoom phone number or Zoom ID that ties to your default meeting ID. But if you go to a new meeting, it will have a new ID, and that will expire after the meeting and not be used. From our point of view, won't be used again. If it is, it's random, and you can't rely on that. So that would be the difference between start a meeting. So when you start a meeting, decide before you start that meeting whether you want a new meeting or whether you want a brand an existing meeting, and if you do, select that. To join a meeting, and that's the choice that you pick. You push on the option, the square that says join, and another menu will come up. And join means that there already is a meeting in progress and you're wanting to be part of that meeting. So you need a meeting ID. It's kind of like picking up your phone to make a phone call. You have to have a phone number of who you're going to call on the other end for it to make any sense. So joining a meeting requires a meeting ID. The meeting ID is going to generally be 7, 10, maybe even 11 numbers long. They'll be numbers, and it might be, and quite often will be, the other person's default meeting ID. And we'll talk about your meeting ID in the next slide. But when we're looking at this, you need to have that number. Now, you can make up a number. It ain't going to work. You with all the possible numbers that it could be, you really need to have the one that goes to the meeting or the person that you're trying to enter. And where there's a square where you say your meeting ID or your personal link name, if there's a link name, don't worry about that right now. So you're going to put in your meeting ID that you want. Underneath that, there's another box you could put in your name. Now, why? Well, some people use a different name at work than they use at church. Some people use their given name, Joseph R. Fielding or something like that. I don't know. I made that up, of course. But at church, it might be Joe or Joe Fielding, and that's okay. So we can let you put in what you want to be called or known as inside that meeting. You also get to select whether or not to connect to the audio. Some meetings are really kind of one-way meetings, and they're not really for you to participate in as much as you to observe. So you might say, don't connect to the audio. And that saves you some bandwidth and saves some noise on the meeting. Things like that would be used if you knew that you were just observing a PowerPoint presentation, or if you were observing a church service, or if you were observing just a video that somebody is making available at 7:30 Central Time or something like that, so that you know it's really not interactive. And if that's the case, then do not click or tick the box for do not connect to audio. You can also turn off your video. Here again, that might be a viable option if it's not a participatory situation and you're just wanting to receive information. Now, that's not really meant, and I want you to be careful about in our context, as we're going to use this as mission centers and as congregations and as training facilities and so forth. That's not meant for the shy. That's not meant so, oh, I'm shy, I don't want people to see me, so I'm going to turn off my video. That's really, we're video conferencing for a reason. And yeah, I'd like it if people couldn't see me. However, if people couldn't see me and I was making an instructional video, it wouldn't be a very good instructional video. It might not be that good of an instructional video, even if they can see me. So I would leave that one off if it's at all possible, because you can always turn your video off in the meeting. That's one of the options inside the meeting, and will be discussed when you're in meeting. And then you click on join, and you're off and running. So the other of the choices between start, join, and invite, the last one we're going to cover is invite. And if when you go to invite, you'll get a menu that lets you see the invitation that you want to send to somebody. Now, if you have a meeting, if you have a list of meetings that are your standard meetings and you click on one of them and then say show invitation, you're going to see the invitation for that meeting in particular. But if you either select your default meeting, or if you don't have scheduled meetings, such as perhaps every Thursday night you meet with your family, and on once a month you meet with golfing buddies that are across the country, whatever your meeting schedule is, scheduled and recurring meetings can have and use the same meeting ID over and over and over. But when you're doing an ad hoc meeting, hey, right now, let's meet, then you usually are going to use your meeting ID. You need to get the invitation because you need to email it to somebody. And the easiest way to do that is to get to Zoom, say, okay, I'm going to do an ad hoc meeting right now with my default meeting ID. Show me the invitation. And what will pop up on the screen is something, and I'm going to read mine. If I were to do this and send it to you, Jim Burdick is inviting you to a scheduled Zoom meeting. And then on the topic, my topic, if I did just my personal meeting room, would be Jim Burdick's personal meeting room, or my monthly golf buddies, or my weekly family chit chat. So the topic, it will tell you what the purpose of that meeting is. And then it says join Zoom meeting, and it sends a link, https://zoom.us. You'll get your, so you can open up yours, and then /J, which means join, and /, and then there is my meeting ID. And that meeting ID that you see there would be unique to me. I have to go in and start that meeting, and then when somebody, if I sent the email and told somebody, hey, I'm gonna log on at 6:30, so come on aboard at 6:30, then assuming I'm there, then they can click on that link, and their browser should actually use Zoom to start this meeting. And by starting this meeting, log them right into the meeting that we're in. There are also mobile phone dial-in options. There are two of them there. The +1 408. That's because it's actually the 10-digit phone number, 408 638 0968. But they add the +1. That's called the country code, if you're not familiar with that. And you could call me, conceivably, you could call me by +1 408 blah blah blah, and get my area code and my phone number and end up talking to me. Here again, they're adding in a couple of commas, which means a pause or a delay, and then they're using the same, you'll notice that's the same meeting ID for the person coming in through a web connection. And then depending on whether they're closer to New York or closer to San Jose, they can pick either one of those phone numbers and log in by phone. So you don't have to have a video connection, although it really makes it nice when you do. And then if you want to find something closer, you can call the numbers that it's showing for finding out what your local phone number would be, and it's also an https://zoom.us/u, and then a series of numbers. and that will give you a local number that you can use. You already have USA numbers, so you don't need to worry about that. But that's how Invite works, and you cut and paste the invitation that it shows, and when you cut and paste it, it will come up with a text that can be put into an email. You send that email to whoever you're inviting, and it should all work. So the other of the choices between start, join, and invite, the last one we're going to cover is invite. And when you go to invite, you'll get a menu that lets you see the invitation that you want to send to somebody. Now, if you have a meeting, if you have a list of meetings that are your standard meetings, and you click on one of them and then say show invitation, you're going to see the invitation for that meeting in particular. But if you either select your default meeting, or if you don't have scheduled meetings, such as perhaps every Thursday night you meet with your family, and on once a month you meet with golfing buddies that are across the country, whatever your meeting schedule is, scheduled and recurring meetings can have and use the same meeting ID over and over and over. But when you're doing an ad hoc meeting, hey, right now, let's meet, then you usually are going to use your meeting ID. You need to get the invitation because you need to email it to somebody. And the easiest way to do that is to get to Zoom, say, okay, I'm going to do an ad hoc meeting right now with my default meeting ID. Show me the invitation. And what will pop up on the screen is something, and I'm going to read mine. If I were to do this and send it to you, Jim Burdick is inviting you to a scheduled Zoom meeting. And then on the topic, my topic, if I did just my personal meeting room, would be Jim Burdick's personal meeting room, or my monthly golf buddies, or my weekly family chit chat. So the topic, it will tell you what the purpose of that meeting is. And then it says join Zoom meeting, and it sends a link, https://zoom.us. You'll get your so you can open up yours, and then /J, which means join, and /, and then there is my meeting ID. And that meeting ID that you see there would be unique to me. I have to go in and start that meeting, and then when somebody, if I sent the email and told somebody, hey, I'm gonna log on at 6:30, so come on aboard at 6:30, then assuming I'm there, then they can click on that link, and their browser should actually use Zoom to start this meeting. And by starting this meeting, log them right into the meeting that we're in. There are also mobile phone dial-in options. There are two of them there. The +1 408. That's because it's actually the 10-digit phone number, 408 638 0968. But they add the +1. That's called the country code, if you're not familiar with that. And you could call me, conceivably, you could call me by +1 408 blah blah blah, and get my area code and my phone number and end up talking to me. Here again, they're adding in a couple of commas, which means a pause or a delay, and then they're using the same, you'll notice that's the same meeting ID for the person coming in through a web connection. And then depending on whether they're closer to New York or closer to San Jose, they can pick either one of those phone numbers and log in by phone. So you don't have to have a video connection, although it really makes it nice when you do. And then if you want to find something closer, you can call the numbers that it's showing for finding out what your uh, uh, local what your local phone number would be, and it's also an https://zoom.us/u, and then a series of numbers, and that will give you a local number that you can use. You already have USA numbers, so you don't need to worry about that. But that's how Invite works, and you cut and paste the invitation that it shows, and when you cut and paste it, it will come up with a text that can be put into an email. You send that email to whoever you're inviting, and it should all work. Hello, we're back again. It's a different day and a different island shirt, but we're raring to go. As you can see, my brother's with me again today, my twin brother, or he thinks he's my twin. Fact is, he's not, but we don't want to disabuse him of thinking that. Anyway, we're going to continue, and he won't be participating. I will. And just a couple of things quickly. You might notice that around the square that I'm in, and that's the one that's pointing at that camera, you should see that the square has a yellow box around it. That indicates that the system thinks that I am the speaker. We'll talk more about that later, but be aware that that's how that's generated. Generally, the most common things you will need are access within what's called the meeting screen. And we've talked about the meeting screen being the meeting screen being the screen that you see myself and my brother in. And we're going to discuss that and how to get to it. It's the area that is the window labeled Zoom, and it contains the video or the boxes with participants' names. If somebody was doing a dial-in right now to this meeting that we're having, there would be an additional box that would be down. There would be 3 boxes, 2 on top, 1 on the bottom, and one of them would only have the person's name or phone number to tell you that there is somebody there, but they're only by phone, not by voice, or not by video. If they use their video the way my brother is, he's not connected by phone. He's connected by the internet with a video connection. So that's the purpose of seeing those boxes in there. I'm going to open up a couple of screens that show what things you probably can't even see right now. So I'm going to share some pictures with you. And when I share these pictures, we'll talk about them. The first one I want to share is the picture, and I got the wrong one. I'm sorry. Let me fix that. That's the one you'll see third. I'm going to try again. We're going to share picture. This is the basic picture that you would see if we were looking at nothing more than just the meeting screen. You'll notice that it's pretty much blank except for the picture of my brother and me. Now, that's what you see, and that should be what's recorded when you view the recording of what we've had so far. And I'm going to quit that for a minute because this is a little bit tricky. But if you move your mouse into the area of the screen, you should see my mouse moving in the area of the screen, but that's a shared picture right now. That's not really a live screen. I'm going to stop that screen, and I'm going to share a different screen. This is that same screen that I was showing a moment ago, except I have moved, before I took this snapshot, I had moved my cursor inside the area of the meeting screen. And when you do that, it wakes that box up and shows you what are called in-meeting controls. The in-meeting controls that we're going to be working with are the controls across the bottom. You see there's a rectangle down across the bottom, and those are the controls that we're going to be working with and talking about. In addition, if I were to stop moving my mouse, whether I leave my mouse still in there or if I move my mouse outside of the screen, after about 3 seconds, generally, those controls go away. They only appear when your mouse is moving inside the meeting screen, the in-meeting screen, and the in-meeting controls show up. And if you stop, they will go away, and you have to move your mouse again to see them again. You will notice something you did not notice in the first screen I showed you. There's a little green lock with an E up in the upper left-hand corner of the in-meeting screen. That E means that we have an encrypted link from me to Zoom and the Zoom servers, and you should find one at your end, and there should be an encrypted E at your end as well. And that means that basically, other than whatever happens on the Zoom server itself, what happens from my end to your end is encrypted in transit. So it's relatively secure to use this to talk about confidential things, as far as I can tell. And I don't feel like that's a huge risk. So this E with a lock indicates that. Near the top right are a couple of other emblems, and you can see them here. The far top right has 4 arrows that point out, and if you click that, your window screen, your in-meeting window, will take up full screen, and it'll be replaced by an icon just the same, except the 4 arrows point in. So if they point out, it will take you to full screen. Once you're in full screen, they will point in, and it will bring you into a window that shares the screen with others. Personally, I prefer the window mode so that I can do other things on my computer, pardon me, if necessary, such as open a calendar or something, or look something up. If somebody has a question, I can Google that question and maybe come up with an answer. So those are some upper controls that you'll have. You'll also see a thing that has a sort of a screen and speaker view. If I click speaker view, I will go into another mode, and I'll do that in real time when when we're back in the in-meeting window. And then what we're in right now is gallery mode. If I go to speaker mode, it will change to the speaker mode, and then the box that has the yellow around it will be large. It'll take over virtually all the screen. And the boxes, any of the boxes that don't have the yellow around them, will be lined up across the top usually. Sometimes they're along the right-hand side in little, what we call thumbnails. You can still see them, but you can't see them as well as you can see speaker mode. And in the speaker mode, you'll find that that might be how you would like to use if you're giving a lecture or teaching a class or preaching or something like that. You'll see speaker mode might make sense for that mode. So it's a toggle, and whatever between speaker mode and gallery mode, whatever mode you're in, the other is what you see as an option. So I don't see gallery mode as an option because I'm in gallery mode. But if I switch to speaker mode, I won't see speaker mode as an option. I'll see, or view, speaker view, I'll see gallery view as an option. So it's going to be one or the other of those. And that's kind of a good view that you can get. And so speaker view and gallery view are important and handy, and the size of the speaker's image will be the difference. And if we're in a round table where we're talking, if I happen to be the one talking, it will highlight me right now, and if somebody else starts talking, it will highlight them. So the speaker, even when you're not just one single speaker, the speaker view can be handy because you do get a better view of the person who's actually speaking. And you can watch the gallery view, or you can watch the thumbnails in the speaker view and see you can see if everybody's awake, for one thing, you know, that kind of stuff. The commands that we're going to spend time on now are the commands across the bottom. And I'm going to go to another window. I'm going to stop this share. I'm going to share another window with you. And the window I'm going to share would be the window that would come up if I press the in-meeting control that says Manage Participants. I'm going to press that, take a picture of that, and now I'm going to show you that picture. So I'm going to stop this share and I'll be right back with you. Well, here I am back with you, but I'm going to open up another share. And as I said, this is the one that would appear if I were to pick Manage Speakers, or I'm sorry, Manage Participants. I said that wrong. So when I manage participants, I have exactly the same basically window, except it opens up a window to the right that has some more options in it and shows me a list of participants. If I had a total of 5 participants, you would see my name and my twin brother's name, and then you'd see 3 more names after that, and each of them would have status icons over on the right-hand side, as well as any other things that might pop up, and we'll talk about those shortly. We're going to work from left to right, and the audio toggle is the one that has a microphone emblem on it, and the microphone emblem is a toggle. It's either going to be on or off. And underneath it, what it does is it says mute. And it will either be mute or unmute. And the icon for the microphone command will change. It'll either be the way it is now, where it offers to mute me, or it will have a microphone with a red line through it that says unmute. So it's going to change. So if you were I am so sorry, I apologize. Anyway, if that will go away eventually. It did. Let me collect myself again here. That will be a toggle. It will either mute you or unmute you. You always want to be unmuted to talk. And unless you're the actual host, you probably want to be muted through most of the times that you're not speaking in there. The stop video option, and we'll come back to these up arrows last. The stop video option stops sending my video, and we'll show that at some point, and you'll see. We'll do it, and you'll see that how that works. And one of the advantages of filling in your profile a little bit. Anyway, stop the video or start the video. And if I were right now to stop the video, you would not see me moving and waving and so forth. What you would do is you would see a still picture of me, and I could continue talking. You just wouldn't see my video. I'm going to move next. Hang on for just a minute. Okay, I'm sorry. The next one, I lost my page of my script. The next button is invite. And if you push the invite button, that adds new people. Sometimes you're in a meeting and you've got the 4 people that were planned to be there, and one of them says, you know, Henry or Sylvia has some information that might be beneficial. They just got this. Why don't we see if we can get them in here? And you can use the invite button, and it will open a new window that lets you choose an email engine to send an invitation to somebody during your active meeting. It will send exactly the same invitation that your planned meeting participants got, and it'll give the instructions for how that person can either log on or call in to help the meeting. The next button that we have is the Manage Participants. You will notice to the right-hand side of that icon, there is a little number that tells you how many participants are in the meeting right now. Because there are my brother and myself, there's 2 participants. It doesn't count the host and only count the others. It counts the host and the others. So that's why it says 2 participants. That button will toggle the window to the right of the meeting window, and that's this white area over on the right-hand side. That window will list the participants and show some status of each participant. If somebody was muted, their microphone would be muted right there, and you'd be able to tell who was and wasn't muted, which comes in handy if, and this happens sometimes even around my house, if a dog starts barking or something, you can't tell where it's coming from and it's interrupting the meeting, you can figure out who it is, and you can actually mute that person by, I say by force. It's not bad, it's not violent, but you can set the mute on that person if you need to calm the meeting down. So managing participants will do that. Later, you'll see how some added information can be shown in the participants window. This is the area where you will see people's votes and preferences, likes or dislikes, or if they want to request a break, or talk faster or talk slower, those kind of things. The prime thing we need to do at this point is to recall that the window, that this is the window, where it is, where it's located, and how to control it. If I turn manage participants, I click that window will go away. And if I click it, it will come back again off and on. It's a toggle and it will do that over and over and over. The next button, and this is the screen button that says share. The share button opens a new window that allows you, shows you things on your PC or your device that you can share. Maybe it's a video or a PowerPoint, etc. And you can share these with the audience. In this case, you're being shared a JPEG picture from my computer. We've just shown these three pictures. They're just all three JPEG pictures that are on my computer, and we have shared them. One point here is that it's very important is that there's also a Zoom-based function that you can share called a whiteboard. If I share the whiteboard, it shares a work area that all of us can have input to and draw on, write on, erase, move things around, that kind of stuff. We can save that after it's done, and we can also print it or share it as a file. Again, it will share as a picture, a JPEG picture. And so those results can do that. When you share, the screen that lets you select what you will share will be near the very bottom. There'll be an option to share computer sound. And this should always be on, ticked or chosen, selected, if you want the sound on your computer to be shared to the other side. Well, if I'm sharing a video that has sound on it, I need to tick that option when I select that file. Otherwise, you'll see the video, but you won't hear the sound. So we're expecting that you will tick that when you go. The next command is to chat. And when you do select chat, you'll get a small window that allows you to text messages to be sent to either the entire group or to an individual in the group. And you can send answers or responses this way. If the host of the group asked everyone what year they graduated, you could use, and they could send that out as a chat to everyone. And then everyone could chat back just to the user or to the host. I graduated in 19 whatever, and that will appear in their chat window. And you won't see other people's chats unless they're to everybody. And other people won't see your chats unless they're to everybody. So if you chat directly to a person, you'll be fairly private on that. The next button is to record, and on the record, what you can do is turn recording on, and you can record sound of the meeting so that you have the audio of the meeting, or you can record the video of the meeting, which will record the audio as well. And when you record the meeting, that will be happening while you're functioning, but it will also not be available until after the meeting closes entirely, after everybody has gone. Then the next option is breakout rooms. And the breakout rooms is a really cool option. We have, for instance, a monthly meeting with the Mission Center presidents and the Mission Center financial team all at one time. Periodically, there are things that one team more than the other needs to speak. They need to speak about that really doesn't involve the other, And so what we can do is break into two separate breakout groups where we have a president's breakout group and a financial breakout group, and then assign people to that. You have quite a flexibility with that, so you might learn how to do that if you're going to be doing priesthood meetings or classes or something like that. You can change the number of rooms and the number of people per rooms, and you can move people from one room to the other, and the host can visit any of the rooms that they want and visit, and then you can send out an alarm and ask people, tell them that their room is going to expire in 60 seconds and come back to the regular meeting. So we've covered the buttons that you see on the main meeting screen, but between some of those buttons, there are three up arrow or caret symbols. The caret symbol or up arrow symbol, it indicates that there's another menu that will pop up. And I want to do those three up arrows very briefly, but I'm going to show there's one up arrow, there's the second up arrow, and there's the third up arrow. So the first up arrow actually opens up a menu of options to control audio functions like your microphone, your speaker, testing your audio level, things like that. And please try these sometime. In fact, try them before you're in a meeting, in a real meeting with somebody, or unless that's what your meeting is to try these things together, which actually is a pretty good thing to do. Find somebody who's also interested and establish a meeting and go through those things together. In fact, you can share this video with each other, and one of you can share it and both of you watch it, and you can start it and stop it as you please and go through and do these things. So anyway, the up arrow one basically is a sub menu for audio, and it doesn't do me good to show you how my settings are because they are computer unique. So your computer will have similar options or the same options, but what to set them to is something that is unique to each computer. Arrow number 2, which is to the right of the stop video or video start video, that arrow number 2, it handles your video. It lets you pick which camera you are using. And please try to see how these work on your computer. And as I say, your settings may be entirely different than mine. Your choices will be similar, but your settings may be entirely different because of the makeup of your computer. Up arrow 3, which is between the share and the chat button, up arrow 3, opens a menu of options that relate to sharing. Mostly you will want to limit sharing to usually one person at a time, but this is where you can choose and set this these settings, for instance. So I would probably preset yours to one person at a time can share, and you can make it so only the host can share. But sometimes you want to be able to have other people share. So you need to kind of look at that. As we transition, we've covered the things that are in the window for the in-meeting window. If you forgot or left or have gone back to a window that does not have the participants window, then you might want to redo the meeting, manage participants window. I lost the word manage there for a minute. You might want to bring that window back because we're going to talk a little bit about that window. And these options that you have are only available when they work, but you can't see them unless the participant screen is active. So we have the participant screen active, and that is this white screen to the right of my picture, and the specific button that you did um, uh, that probably will help a lot is the handiest of them all, and that's the mute all button. I have used that sometimes when we're in a meeting and there's a commotion that arises in the meeting. As I mentioned, someone's barking dog might do it, or passing, if they have their microphone on it, and a passing fire engine. That happens at Shenandoah all the time. With that, you can mute people and cut that noise out, and then unmute and go back when it's not so cluttered audio-wise. So pressing that button might silence everyone so that control can be recovered. If the host's Zoom configuration is properly adjusted, you may be able to see in-meeting feedback. The host has to allow for these things, and these would be the choices that include yes, no options, go slower, go faster options, and then there's an option that says even more options, and the even more options allows you things like such as requesting a break or doing a like or a dislike if it's not really a yes or no, but might be how like or dislike you are of some topic or what have you. I'm going to stop now and go back to the window. Okay, the things that I'm going to be doing and sharing now, or sharing's the term inside Zoom, I'm going to be talking about now are kind of cool things, but they may be different than your than you'll see on your screen. So if you want to, you may come back to this kind of again and again and again. Anyway, the very first one I want to talk about is voting. And if you have your participant screen up, and if the configuration is set correctly, and you can get help with this by Googling vote, let's see, how to vote in Zoom. Something like that will give you the setting that you need to do to turn these on. The different circles and dots and stuff underneath at the bottom of the participants window should come on. And if you ask for a vote and you and people say that it's yes or no, they can click on either yes or no, and ultimately you will also end up with a little tally above the yes and above the no that tells you how many of go which, so you don't have to really count. You can see, but you don't have to really count. If somebody says go faster or go slower, you can also see the number of people there who have asked for that, and that's a very reasonable thing for us to want to do. If somehow you happen to turn on your go slower button and didn't mean to, that doesn't mean you have to turn on your go faster button to turn it off. In fact, if you hit your go slower twice in a row, it will go on, your icon will come on and then it'll go off. If you go to more, if you click on more, another menu will show up, and above that you can have dislike, like, clap. That's how you can have applause without actually having to have applause. And then request a break or need a break. And they picked coffee, so coffee break. But I would say if you needed a bio break, turn that on, and people will know that people the host will know that maybe we need to do something about that. And then if you if you're in the middle of a meeting and you see FedEx at the door or UPS and you know it's going to take 30 seconds, you can actually click the away button while you're away, because you don't have time to explain it and so forth. So you can click the away button and then turn it off when you come back. And then you can clear all, which will clear all of your various buttons that might be up there, because you can vote no, and you can say request a break, and you can have a bunch of things that need to be cleared, and you can do that with clear all. For the person who's allowing participants to managing the participants and allowing them to mute or unmute themselves, sometimes you need just to have everybody be muted, and you may or may not allow participants to unmute themselves. You may or may not allow participants to rename themselves, or you can play it. In my case, it's already turned on, but you can turn off a chime that tells you somebody's entered or exited, and you can lock a meeting. Now, that doesn't lock people in, that locks people out, so that at some point you can say, okay, we've begun the meeting and we're not going to allow any more late arrivals. Anyway, those are things that you can do with the participants, and they're handy things. Some of the things, sharing in general, that you can do, sharing uses a lot of system resources. And when you're using a lot of system resources, that might slow down your computer and it might affect your networking and so forth. So I advise that you try as much as you can to be prepared in advance. A lot of times, if you start up a PowerPoint, there's a period of time, maybe it could take 15 seconds, that PowerPoint's doing a bunch of homework things before it actually displays for you. Well, if you have that done before, then when you share with somebody, it takes just a couple seconds to get your PowerPoint shared with the meeting, so doing it in advance helps. Pre-cue your videos, so your video is up, it's in there, it's ready to go. I like to test to make sure that at least the first few seconds it sounds okay and everything like that, and then back up and restart it. Those are just some general things. If you think that you might use something, I would rather have it there and ready to use than to have it need to be brought up during the meeting, because it takes time and it bites into your resources. I'm going to share right now, I'm going to share a whiteboard, and the whiteboard I'm going to share is here, share, there we go. You should be seeing a whiteboard, and you ought to have, you should see my pencil, but if you're in a meeting and you do this, you and all the participants should have that pencil and be able to write. I'm really good with writing, right? If I take my cursor up to the top of the whiteboard, well, now I was wrong. Hang on. There's a toolbar there, up near the top, and it lets me type in text. And if I type in text, now I say this is a text area, and if I hover over like draw, I can select different things. I don't know whether you can see what I'm doing, but I'm going to draw a diamond shape there. I can erase, and if I erase, you see that I can erase the scribbles we've made. I can save this. I can change the format, like the color of something. So anyway, that I erased the text. I can select an area like that, and I should be able to pick blue and that. So now when I do draw a diamond, thought I had it there. Now that time I had it. Now I get, because I picked the format that is a thicker blue, I have a thicker blue diamond. So you see how that works. I can save this. When you save it, then you can of course print that file out and then email it to everybody involved. And then I can exit by killing the session there and there. So that showed you how I can share the whiteboard. If I go to share, and I have a way I can share a window that has a script in it. This is the script. Okay, now I can fill that window, and okay, I can also go what is called go back to share. Now, I told you about the speaker window. If I pick the speaker window, you see that the participants are in smaller windows here, and the speaker is in a larger window. If you're sharing, sometimes people, when they share a PowerPoint, like to have a small window of the person sharing, and that can be what you might want to do when you share a PowerPoint, because people can see you and see your PowerPoint. That's handy. Here's the gallery view. Now we're in speaker view. I'm going to go back to gallery view, and you see the icon there is to have a bunch of little thumbnails. And the icon in speaker view is to have one big picture with some small thumbnails above it. So I think most people operate on the gallery view, but feel free to use speaker view if that's what you prefer. The last thing I'm going to share is the end meeting. If you pick end meeting, you're going to get a selection that's going to come up with a submenu that says, do you want to end the meeting for all, or do you just want to leave the meeting? If I leave the meeting will continue. If I have the settings correctly, the meeting will continue with the remaining participants. And that's okay in many cases. Sometimes 3 or 4 people say, hey, when this meeting's over, can we continue to meet for a few minutes? And you say, oh yeah. That way, as a host, you can leave the meeting. You